Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to BBallBreakdown in our studios. I am pleased to bring on the show today Bob from Twitter, Bob Vulgaris, who was nice enough to come by the studio, and we were having a talk a little bit about the way that teams were guarding the Warriors and how that evolved. And so I'm curious, I wanted to come in and give us some more of your thoughts about how that changed and what that meant for the Warriors, I guess, not winning the title.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I noticed early on in the Oklahoma City series, for sure, because they're really the first team that made it seem like you could beat Golden State. I think before then, everyone just thought, okay, as long as Curry's somewhat healthy, we're going to roll through every team. And what Oklahoma City did really well was they started switching 1 to 5 on everything. Mm-hmm. And that actually started earlier in the season when the Spurs brought it out against Golden State, I think on March 19th, where San Antonio was a team that never really did that switch. Mm-hmm. They had different ways they defended pick and roll, and one of them wasn't switching that aggressively to 1 to 5, including off-ball stuff, which I think is really the key. Switching a pick is one thing, but switching the off-ball stuff seemed to really cause the Warriors' ball movement a little bit of trouble. So that was one of the things I found interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And certainly, switching causes a lot of issues if you're not ready for it. It seemed like we saw in the finals, the Cavaliers sort of didn't switch in game 1, and then they tried to start switching in game 2, and it kind of became
They switched
a mess.
In game 1, but it was more on the ball, and it was more, where are we switching? Am I supposed to switch? Am I switching to this guy? Who's got that guy? Right. There was a lot of that. There wasn't any real definitive, and you saw a little bit of that also in the San Antonio game, because you have a team who's not accustomed to playing the style of defense, maybe practices it in a walkthrough, definitely not full speed, definitely not in the flow of a game. It takes some time.
And I think that's what people understand a lot, is that in the regular season you don't really have practice time.
Right.
So the one thing you can adjust, I think, is defense. I think it's easier to put in some stuff defensively and they can pick it up, whereas offense has a lot more nuance and timing and things. But I still think that, it's an issue. And if we want to talk about the San Antonio game, I think we have some clips that we wanted to sort of focus on a little bit for an example of what you were seeing, right, as far as the switching off ball stuff.
So here's an example of San Antonio switching 1 to 5. I mean, the main thing about this play that's interesting is you have Curry off the ball, and they're trying to run an action for him. I believe it's somewhat, I don't know if it's floppy or what, but yeah, so the play basically starts with Mills is guarding Curry. As the play progresses, we have now Ginobili's guarding Curry, Mills switches off to Barbosa. One more time. Now Mills is back on to Curry. West picks him up, bumps him. Now Mills is on him again. Ginobili's on Curry. I mean, they basically are just switching back and forth. Finally, at the end of the play, Curry ends up with LaMarcus Aldridge on him. There's 6 seconds left in the shot clock. They really have nothing going here, and finally the play devolves into a Livingston post-up. He gets defended well. He passes off to another switch and closeout, and finally the play breaks down with less than a second left on the shot clock. They get off a desperation 3, which happens to go in.
Right. I have to imagine Popovich would have been happy with that defensive possession.
Anyone would be happy with that defensive possession. Yeah. You have, the number of switches, we could probably go back and count them later on. You could and just go through how many times they switch. So that's an example of an effective possession for sure. Yeah. And that's kind of what you saw, especially when Curry was off the ball. Now when he's on the ball, it presents a different problem because now you're switching 1 and 5 or 1 and 4, and so you have a big on him. And I think we have a play where he's able to blow by Aldridge earlier on, where Aldridge switches onto him and he's able to blow by him. And we never really saw that at all in the finals, him able to get by, whether it was Love, Thompson, or anyone.
I had seen in that game some good examples of the Warriors being able to combat that switching with cuts and getting good shots. They simply just missed.
In the first game.
In that game against the Spurs.
Right.
And so, so my take on it was that was an interesting blueprint, but I'm not sure as another coach, if I was looking at it, I would think, oh man, this is going to be it. So, what else did you feel like ultimately bogs the Warriors down enough where that's a blueprint?
I think the main thing with that is they're getting, you mentioned this before, you think Curry's much better off the ball in terms of their offense is a lot more efficient when he's coming out. They run a lot of floppy for him. They run a lot of action from off the ball. They run a lot of split cuts, split screens, all these different things that get him action where he's open. And I think why it's a blueprint is or why it works or why it's effective is that so much of the open looks that he's getting are situations where they run like elevator, they're running hammer, where he's maybe not, they run hammer more for Clay, or they run it for Curry sometimes, where basically a player's tracking him off the ball and they're getting caught up in some sort of action off the ball, whether it's a screen, whether it's running through. And when you have a team that can actually consistently just switch every single one of those, I look at it like, imagine you're running a 100-yard dash against someone, and every time you pull away from him, he's got another person in front of him that he tags off to who's now matched up with you, or a few steps ahead of you. And so they just weren't getting any of that. And the interesting part was it didn't stop Golden State from running those types of plays. They continued to run those types of plays and were not getting anything. And all it was doing was it looked like it was just tiring them out. It was almost kind of like a rope-a-dope in some ways. Like, you want to run this play where Curry's running around a drag screen, running around 3-4 different, running whether it's loop or running floppy, and you're just never picking up any ground.
So when you give Curry, when he can see the rim with the ball here, or even off the dribble or the catch, it's an wide open shot for him.
Right.
But having had to run that 100-yard dash against 3 people in one setting, all of a sudden it maybe isn't the same shot, I would imagine, right?
No, yeah, I haven't been able to quantify this, but I could be wrong, but it's my opinion that if you only look at the end of the shot, is a shot open or is it not open? I mean, perfect example would be Ray Allen standing in the corner open. He's not doing it, or Shane Battier when LeBron was drawing post-ups. Those are open shots, but that's not the same type of shot as if you have to run around 5 different actions, coming around a corner. Maybe you don't get your feet planted exactly right before squaring up to the basket. So I think the amount of energy you're expending up to and including the shot is definitely a factor in whether or not the shot goes in.
So let's go through some more clips we wanted to point out about the switching with San Antonio and how that really worked effectively or not effectively against the Warriors as this blueprint for, shutting down their high-octane offense.
So there's like the one play where this is kind of the idea that people are talking about, well, maybe Curry wasn't healthy and this is why they weren't ISOing him a lot. And I do think that's an antidote to all of this switching, is you post up or you ISO. So here's an example where he just completely gets ISO'd on Aldridge, completely blows by him. The key thing about this play is it's a big who is basically the rim protector on the floor right now. Mm-hmm. So if you get him out high and you can get by him, there isn't a lot of help defense, which is what happens here. Diaw is just not able to contest at all. He just falls back and is just not able to help at all.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is when these types of plays did happen versus Cleveland, the help defender was LeBron, and I do think that spooked Golden State, especially after LeBron started blocking all of these shots. I do think that spooked them a little bit, and they were less willing to go, less willing to get a switch and drive. I think he was more willing to get a switch and try to ISO and rather than blow by, just shoot over it big.
So when you say all these shots, like I remember he blocked Curry going to the basket once on a kind of a weak attempt.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if he had a lot of blocks, right, in the raw numbers.
Well, he led the series in blocks.
Okay.
So whether there was a lot or not, it was more than any other player.
Okay, fair
enough. He
enough.
actually led the series in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks.
That's probably the only time it's ever happened, I think, right?
Yeah, not probably, most definitely. It's probably one of the most amazing feats I've ever heard.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going to break that down too, by the way, the last 3 games and how incredible those were. So
okay. So we have that, and then so you have people saying, well, one of the reasons why they never ISO'd Curry and had him blow by was because he was hurt and he wasn't able to get past anyone, which is possible. There's actually a clip in that same game where a similar situation is where Curry now gets a switch and is ISO'd on Tim Duncan, who is not, he's not the spryest of defenders at this point in his career. And the play starts off where Curry is coming off of a screen, he's guarded by Mills, and then Varejao sets a screen and Mills has him again, and they end up running a side pick, and now Duncan comes out and starts guarding him, and Curry has him with 17 left on the clock.
Right.
Completely ISO'd, and he is unable to get any type of separation and is forced to pass it off. A difference there is that possibly because there was so much time in the shot clock, he never really figured out, maybe he can try this again and get a better shot at it, but he never did end up turning into an Ian Clark corner three-pointer. But that's a good example of Curry being switched on a big, healthy, and unable to get any type of separation at all. I mean, Duncan is moving his feet. Curry tries to go behind the back to get past him, isn't able to get any separation. It actually looks a lot like the Kevin Love play at the end of the game, where he's not looking to drive. He's looking to get by him. He's looking to take a three-point shot, and he's just unable to get any separation.
Right, and I think it's clear that he's not almost ever looking to get by.
Right.
Even though he did very well at the rim and in the lane driving this year.
I think he finished at the rim, at career high. He had a ridiculous, it might have been even one of the league leaders. Well, not quite, but very ridiculous high percentage of finishing at the rim. But again, I think a lot of that is him having someone coming off of a screen, they're just having a different type of defensive philosophy versus the switch where it's just an ISO, I'm going to have to blow by someone. He's not a blow-by player. There aren't that many blow-by players in the league to begin with.
Right.
And he's not one of them, it seems, right now.
And he certainly looked uncomfortable once he got by.
Right.
He was slowing up. He was trying to get contact from behind. It was kind of ugly on those finishes, which, again, could speak to instability and pain.
For sure.
Who knows?
Yeah. Or just the grind of the season. How about that? How about just? I mean, sure, he rested more than any other player, but they went through a 7-game series versus Oklahoma City, another 7-game series versus Golden State. They didn't have a tough series versus Portland, but it wasn't a sweep and it wasn't a fight. I mean, the series went a little bit too. Was it a 6-game series versus Portland, or was it 5? I think it was 5.
I think it was 5. Yeah.
But he missed a few games in that series too. So it wasn't, it's impossible to really tell. I mean, if you look at the actual numbers of what speed he's going at, average speed per game, then there isn't that big of a difference between pre-injury and post-injury.
Right.
But again, that doesn't factor into acceleration and being able to actually get off and push off.
Again, because the question here is, does everybody move to a switching defense, which also requires a personnel overhaul for some teams, I'd imagine, right? Because you need to have, what would you think is the personnel you need to have to be able to switch? Let's just say it's 1 through 4.
Right. Well, one of the things that people talked about is this is the future of defense anyways, because Golden State started this switching defense for the most part. I mean, you had teams like Mike Woodson teams used to switch a lot, I believe. They were one of the first teams that would switch all pick and rolls. And then Golden State took it to the really basically the furthest reach of that, which is we're going to have 5 players, 1 through 5, to switch all positions. Have a player like Green who can guard a point guard. You need your big, whether it's an undersized or a center who's a power forward, or like a hybrid in between who can switch 1 through 5 and pick up the point guards in these switches. Teams don't really have that personnel. A lot of teams don't really have it, but the league is kind of going that way. The idea of these really, really big players are. I mean, you look at a guy like BBall in the playoffs. BBall was effective guarding on the perimeter. He was effective controlling the paint. So that's a guy who can fit in. If you have a player like that who can play center, you have someone who can actually fit into that. Now, someone like Bogut is able to get away with it because he's switching a lot down in the paint, or they're just passing guys off back and forth. But Bogut isn't really going to be able to take a stretch 4 who can actually go take him off the dribble. He's not going to be able to defend that. But the other part is it's not just the switching; it's the help that happens after a player gets past his initial defender, which is where you need the players 1 through 5 who can be athletic.
They're going after Curry, right? That was the.
Well, this is the downfall of the switching defense. You talk about what types of things is this going to be the future of the league? It will be in some, because teams are already. You saw it last year when San Antonio beat Golden State with this defense. The next teams that Golden State faced were Boston, who switched, who beat them in 1 game. Minnesota, who never switched all year, switched everything in that game, and then continued to switch the rest of the season, which I found really interesting. That became. I was watching some of their games, and Jim Peterson, who does their analyst role on Fox Sports for them, was always wondering, are they going to continue this defense? And they always did. They did it, and he was just blown away by it, the fact that they were actually effective at it.
And so it was effective. It actually helped them.
Of course, yeah, it helped them a lot.
And by the way, with Minnesota, you have Karl Anthony Towns, who can conceivably be that guy that can guard
1 through, and you have Rubio, who. So the problem is now, what's the antidote to that? And the antidote is going back to old school basketball, which is not efficient. People are always ISOs and post-ups are the 2 worst things. So this is like Mark Jackson's dream if every team is going to the switching type of defense, because you're going to get players who can actually be exploited in ISO, and post-up, which is what Cleveland did to Curry by switching on to him and forcing him to actually get back down by LeBron over and over and over again. Now, how do you react to that? Do you send a double to a guy who's an amazing passer? So that's part of it.
Well, when you're so to wrap this up, I'm just thinking, what do you think is going to be happening? What is the future? Are we going to see more teams continue to emulate ball movement and spacing like the Warriors?
Sure. I think that's already what teams are doing anyways. I think what's more interesting is this isn't the future of basketball. It's like a current evolution and then something. So for the defense, definitely you will see more teams switching 1 to 5 next year. I can promise you that will happen.
Okay. Well, we'll have to stay tuned to find out. I'm sure you're going to be around 10 years doing this, and
I'll be 50 in 10 years. I don't know. in 10 years, possibly. I hope so.
I know. I guess I haven't even thought about it, but yeah, I probably will maybe still be on the same couch. We'll find out. We'll do it again.
For sure.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. This has been really fantastic stuff, and I know you guys have learned a lot from it. So stay tuned for more coming up on B-Ball Breakdown all summer long. And don't forget, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You win. Are you in, Bob?
I guess so, yeah, I'm in.
You can say no.
I'm in for sure.